We have clinicians that direct therapy. So the clinicians are helping to direct treatment, they're helping to plan the child's day, they're helping to determine even nutritional aspects of the program, as well as what's going on in the school. Our teachers are also all special ed teachers, so they're very good at what they do. Our EAs are specialized in mental health, so they're very good at what they do. And all of us work together as a team to try and drive each student's individualized plan.
In this video, you'll meet Terry Stevenson, who's the head of school at the Applewood Academy for Progressive Learning in Belleville, Ontario. And in this video, you'll hear him talk about how the school uses data to drive their individual approaches to the students at the school. And you'll also hear him talk about the values that the school has and how they instill a sense of independence and confidence in the students that they have that traditionally have not thrived in an educational setting. So why don't we start by you telling me 3 things you love about your job?
I guess, well, first of all, I enjoy being able to get students to plow ahead and be able to move on with their lives. It's nice. It's having difficulties to graduating from our school and being able to do just fine. So it's quite nice. That's one. Second one is I enjoy the working with the clinical team and the teachers, because we have an excellent team of people. We began as clinicians. That was how we started this in the first place. So we're all very clinically oriented, and it's a pleasure to work with our clinicians who work with the kids, of course, and our teachers who are working as well with the kids and trying to help things improve. Third thing, the area. I like the area. I like being in this area and being able to work here in Belleville. It's a wonderful area, a lot of country around. It's a fairly quiet area. It's a small town or small city, I guess. So it's nice area to work in.
And in terms of the students at Applewood, are most of them from the area, or do they come from all over?
We only have like 2 or 3 students that are from the area. We have a couple of places reserved for day students, or there are a few that are in here. Primarily, our kids are coming from across Canada and from around the world. We have a number from the US. We have kids from Nigeria, Bahamas, Bermuda. So yeah, it's quite an eclectic group.
In terms of your role as head of school, how do you operate within the school? What does a day look like for you?
For me, my role is primarily to move things along. So I do a lot of policy reviews. I do a lot of reviews of the systems and how everything's working, looking at the data, because we're very data driven. So I do a lot of the data driven work and then pass that on back to the staff to use to develop protocols for working with the kids.
And what kind of data are you talking about when you say that you have a data driven process?
Well, we look at, we have a psychological assessments that we use. We use the WISC for intellectual assessments. We do symptom checklists, those kinds of things. Plus, we also look at the data that we collect coming in, including weight, height or body mass index, making sure that they're eating well, dietary issues, behavioral issues, number of incidents that a child might have. We also use, for behavioral management, we track ratings, daily ratings, and there's reinforcers and whatnot built on those. So that's some of the data that we use.
And what do you find this data provides, and being able to use it in this in the manner that Applewood is able to look at it and put it to practice?
The main issue is it allows us to individualize everything. So we can individualize treatment for every child, both the psychological treatment, what kind of therapies we're going to use, what kind of behavioral management techniques we're going to use, but also academic data so that we can drive both what they're going to learn, how they're going to learn it, what kind of workarounds we can use for kids who have learning deficits, I guess those are primarily the main bits that we would use on a day-to-day basis.
Right. When you hear the word data driven, it feels very, your mind thinks about very large numbers. But in this case, it's using data to make a highly individualized approach.
Yeah, and that's one of what we it's the way that we do things as well as we do, because we use that data to drive individual approaches. And it's excellent for the kids because each kid then gets, each student has a way of figuring out what they're going to be moving on with, how they're going to be taught. It just works out terrifically that way. And as well as looking at, say, mood scales, behavioral scales, anxiety scales, that are part of looking at how we're doing with the child and reducing those significant symptoms.
And in terms of Applewood with such an international and national student base, what about Applewood is so unique that it is able to draw students from these various places that are looking for a specialized program?
I think part of why we do, or the way we drive our program with the data makes a huge difference. We have clinicians that direct therapy. So the clinicians are helping to direct treatment, they're helping to plan the child's day, they're helping to determine even nutritional aspects of the program, as well as what's going on in the school. Our teachers are also all special ed teachers, so they're very good at what they do. Our EAs are specialized in mental health, so they're very good at what they do. And all of us work together as a team to try and drive each student's individualized plan. When I look at other schools, when we've examined some of the other schools, a number of them have a clinical approach, but then they tend to use ILS services or other services to add the academic component. We have both the teachers for the academic component as well as having the clinicians for the mental health component. So we have both melded together.
So what kind of student comes to Applewood?
Our students have a variety of academic needs. Some of them are limited intellectually. Some of them have learning disabilities. Some of them are very bright and are working at a very high level academically. But they have difficulties, all of them have difficulties with either behavior or emotional and behavioral issues that are the main issues that some of these children have. Academics can vary, but again, we work towards both the mental health issues and the academic issues simultaneously. The families that are coming to us have children that have these kind of mental issues or behavioral issues and really need help being able to get those adjusted before the child can fully move on to doing academics.
And so are there specific years you see students tend to come to Applewood, or is it the full kind of academic journey that they complete there?
We have a number of kids who've been with us for 3-4 years. So some come for a shorter period of time. They're here. We have children from grade 1 right through to grade 12. Often they'll come for at least 1 year, sometimes 2 or 3, and become stabilized. And then we'll try and work with their families to get them back into a regular school and back into the home. And we'll try and teach the families as well what are some of the management techniques that we've used so that they can apply those back within their home. And they can give those over to the next school that comes into their lives and be able to have that school try some of the strategies that we've used. So that's one of the bigger areas that we work on, is to try and get them back in. But we do have some kids that are with us for long term.
What kind of student wouldn't be appropriate for Applewood?
Children that have are a danger to themselves or others to such a degree that we can't manage them safely within the program without risking others or our staff.
Right. And what is the relationship that Applewood has with parents, those who are in the area and those who aren't?
Well, I know one of the things that they like about us is that we have a lot of communication. So we're in constant communication with the families. We use what's called, is it Foursquare? I can't remember the name of but we, you know, a lot of emails, a lot of text messages, a lot of video conferences, and I can't remember that name. I think it's Public Square, but or something to that. Parent Square, I think that's what it is. Parent Square. So there's a lot of communication with them. The communication's high frequency. We encourage parent participation and invite them into meetings with their children. They like our assessment. They like that it utilizes data to drive the program and individualize the curricula. They also like our small ratio, students to teachers. We have a 4-to-1 student to teacher ratio. So
the main aspect is just constant communication.
That's the primary one. A lot of the parents really like that we communicate frequently with them.
How would Applewood address a conflict that arises between students at the school?
A conflict between students?
Mm-hmm.
Generally, we'll obviously separate the students if it gets physical. We don't tend to have too many of those problems, but then there's procedures for we'll start to use it as a teaching experience. So how could they behave differently? What were they thinking? We start to use our cognitive behavioral techniques. Look at what the thought process was prior to the incident, and look at how we can change those thought processes and find them ways to disengage and be able to calm themselves down before they re-engage and process the issue.
How long have you been at Applewood?
I've been there since its inception. We began this. So it's been about 17 years now, I guess, 18 years that we've been operating as a school.
And was in that 17 years, has there been a change or innovation in the way that the school operates, or the kind of children that it can serve, that you're particularly proud of?
I guess the biggest thing that's happened to us over time is we've been able to expand. So where we began in a small office, we really began historically as a clinical group. We provided psychological assessments and psychotherapy. We found that we were having difficulty being able to, once we assessed a child and knew what the needs were, we were having difficulty communicating or getting other people to follow through on those. So we decided that we would open up a treatment program that would allow us to then follow through on what our assessments were. Then we found it was difficult to get students into schools and have the schools develop programs for the kids. So we said, well, we'll open up our own school then programs for our kids so we can be assured that our treatment methods and everything flows through. Once we did that, that was back in about 2002, 2003 in that ballpark. And we just had a small little school. I think it accepted 5 kids. It was just we took an office and said, okay, well, we'll use this big office and be able to have kids in here. And we'd worked for a while with the school board with classrooms, but found that given their rules and regulations, they couldn't work with our children who would go in and swear and get kicked out right away and it would be pointless. So we decided to open up our own. We were quite happy. In about 2010, I guess, we purchased what is our school now, which allowed us to bring in up to 30, 40 kids and become a much better school and serve much greater communities. So that's been our biggest piece, is being able to open it up to more kids.
And when you think about Applewood in 5 or 10 years, is there an area that you would like to develop, or maybe perhaps more practice more consistently?
Yeah, I think one of the things that parents would like to see are more daily physical exercising, daily physical activities. And we have some limits right now in our school with how we can do that. We have a fairly large sized gym, but we just don't have a lot of the equipment things. And right now we've also got an agreement with a local rec center, fitness complex, that we can use their facilities. But I would like to, over time, develop better physical activities within the school system itself, within our school itself.
What are the physical activities that are available now?
Well, currently we have hockey, so those kinds of sport activities that are available, basketball and those kind of things. There's a number of parks here, so they often go for walks, or they'll go play soccer in some of the parks, things like that. We do use, as I mentioned, the Belleville Recreation Center, and so they have access to weight rooms, a swimming pool, basketball courts, ice, like for skating and things like that. So for some of our kids, it's quite unique because, you know, you can imagine from Africa, they don't have a lot of access to hockey rinks. And those kind of things. But and then we use also just outside in the wintertime, there's tobogganing, there's a ski hill around, so we've done some skiing with kids. The physical activity improves both the psychological aspects of one's health and the academic aspects of one's health. So.
And what does a typical day look like for an Applewood student?
So a typical day begins with the children getting up, getting themselves prepped, having a breakfast, being transported into the school, beginning their individualized program. Some will go into the arts and start doing some artwork. Others will go into math and other academic curricula. Others will go into the physical aspects and do some physical activities. We have a program of life skills trainings, so that there will be some that work in the kitchen. And for lunch, they'll prepare lunch for other kids and the staff. That'll be sort of taken over to a park or out to have some activity outside. They'll finish up their academics, come home for the evening, have some rest time, involve themselves in helping to make dinner, getting their dinner done, cleaning up their rooms, those kinds of things. And then there'll be activities in the evening, and then they'll have some settle time and be off to bed, only to start again the next day.
And do you have any advice for parents who are in the middle of their school search, or perhaps just beginning their school search right now?
I think a large issue, they need to honestly determine what the child's needs are. Get a good understanding of what their special needs are. Do they need specialized academics? Do they need psychological care, psychiatric care? What kind of medications do they require? How complex is the medication regime? What kind of socialization skills the child needs? What kind of behavioral issues the child has? Emotional issues the child has? Once you have a pretty good understanding of what your child's needs are, it makes it a lot easier to then start to look at which schools will meet those particular needs. So if you can develop their needs, prioritize those so that you know which the most important ones are, and then start to look for a school that meets those important needs. Everything after that is sort of gravy. It becomes better and better for them. But you certainly have to meet the core needs that the child has.
And if you were in their position, going into a school, knowing with your knowledge of the industry and of education that a parent might not have, what is a red flag that you would look for, or something that a parent wouldn't know to specifically ask about or take note of in the process?
I think, given the kind of work that we do, I would want to make sure that there's clinicians available for therapy, for guidance, and I would want to make sure that the teaching staff and the EA staff are well versed in mental health issues, not just academics, but being able to create an environment that is compassionate, forgiving, because these kids often do things that you'll need to forgive them for. And that's the only way that you can carry forward on. You can't hold a grudge. He said this or he's done this, but we need to carry on and move on. So I'd be looking for those kind of qualities in staff, that they're compassionate, that they're caring, that they have integrity.
If Applewood was a person, what kind of personality traits would it have?
Okay, it would have those values that we look for, which are compassion, respect, forgiveness, responsibility, cooperation or cooperativeness. That would be the kind of person it is. It's someone who cares, but also understands that they have to be able to deliver and do the work that they're trying to do. So you need to be able to work with these kids. It takes a lot of patience to work with some of these kids. And that's what I'd be looking for. As a person, I'd be looking for someone who has those kind of patience, compassion, respect.
Okay.